Afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the year-end planning masterclass. This is for 25-26, so this up-and-coming year-end. I just need to let you know that we are recording today's event, so it will be available to you afterwards, but that may make you make the decision whether you want to have your camera on or not, because it will obviously be recorded and uploaded to the website where GP Excellence show their year end and all of their other training videos. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. I'm going to start by going through a little bit of housekeeping. So please do ensure you're on mute, obviously for the recording, but also for background noise and reverb that will start coming through. But we don't want you to have anyone running into your room and giving you some piece of gossip that then is ending up on a recording forever. So just remember that. There will be a chance for Q&A both at the end and during the training today. You can pop things into the chat. I will get to them as soon as I can. I'm obviously on my own. I don't have anyone with me managing the chat, so it may take a few minutes to get to that. I don't send out the slides or the handouts, but they will be emailed out to you directly from GP Excellence. So do take a look out and keep an eye out for any correspondence coming out from them. And they will also send you certificates of attendance for today. If you get disconnected, just rejoin. You don't need to tell me in the chat or anything that you've been disconnected. And if the slides stick, just let me know, or if there's any issues with the sound. I will pop into the chat where to find the links for GP Excellence webinars. So if you have missed any that have gone on throughout the year and you want to go back to them, or if you've seen them and you just want a bit of a reminder, do feel free to go back to them. And because this is being recorded, I have been asked to mention that some people are doing a apprenticeship. And some of the year-end work that we go through today will work as part of your apprenticeship learning that you can put ahead, and to suggest that's your off-the-job learning. I was just asked to mention that. So if you haven't been on my courses before, I'm recognising most of the names that are coming up as sort of regulars, but if you haven't been on them, I am called Luann Stewart. I am a practice manager, or have been a practice manager over several areas over the years, mainly in Lancashire, and covered by the Lancashire and South Cumbria ICB, but I have been training and mentoring across Manchester for a couple of years now, and also for the LMC in Lancs and Lancashire Training Hub. I'm also a private consultant in estates, and I have recently retired from practice management. So this will be the last month of training that I'll be doing for Manchester GP Excellence, or indeed any of the training areas, as I am going to enjoy a little bit more of my retirement time. So our discussions today are going to be around the year-end bits to do with QOF, generally the areas you need to achieve by year-end, and we're also going to go over some of the big HR changes that are coming into force for next year, so that you can get ready and prepare for those, because you need to have quite a bit in place, and maybe need to go through those with your partners. There is an HR handout that will explain everything, and various year-end handouts that will come out to you as an aid memoir for everything that you need to know. So we're going to start with QOF. There were lots of changes for this year on QOF, if you remember all the way back to last April, when they all came in and we started to see changes of contract coming through, along with the 10-year plan coming through, and all the differences that we're going to work through over this year, that has now come towards its end. So one of the biggest changes was there was no payment for list sizes. So if you did lots of prevalence work in the past, that's probably reduced down. But do remember, if you do decide to do any last minute prevalence work, if you've got yourself ahead and you think you're going to do that, there are now no list size payments. So the only payments you will receive by doing that prevalence work is if you actually do all the associated work with it. So that means if you put anyone onto the hypertension register, you'll have to get their blood pressure sorted and in the right areas as well. So if you're doing big pieces of prevalence work, make sure you've got the time and the energy in the next 3 to 4 weeks to get all that associated work done. Gone are the days when it's like we could just add people to the osteoporosis list, as you used to be able to do, and make quite a bit of money. There's a lot more work involved now. The targets have increased this year for your QOF. I'm sure you've been keeping an eye on it in EMIS or System 1, but obviously make sure that you are aware of all the different increases. You're not working on your old areas that you used to hit. It has to be a lot higher now. There will be a how to gain as many points as you can in the areas of QOF that will come out to you. And that is to try and avoid exception reporting as much as possible. For some of you who are maybe new as practice managers and you just think, well, you can go through, you can just exception report and you still hit all of your targets, you are going to be able to hit your targets, but the money will go down because each time you exception report, you are removing someone from that list size of that particular area. So if every time if you exception report 50 asthmatics, that's like having a list size that's 50 smaller. So you lose money each time you exception report. So there are ways of going around your QOF to do it in other ways to make your QOF. You've got a couple of weeks now to work through that. There's not huge amounts of things that you can do, but as I say, the list will come out. But one really good one, depending on the type of area that you work out of. So some of you will be in the lovelier, leafier parts around the suburbs around Manchester. Some of you may be right internally in Manchester, and you're going to have different patient cohorts. The most difficult part for most of you is going to be the childhood IMS. I would imagine, because that is the hardest one for most of the country to hit because there is no exception reporting. One thing you have just about got time to do at this point is to be able to go into the each of the children that haven't hit their IMS targets and check that they are still likely to be on your list. Now, how that can differ, sometimes I've gone onto people's records and it might say emigrated to Australia. At that point, you can put in for an embarkation and have them removed from your list. You've got time to do that now without security removing people. But the bigger areas where you're going to have maybe a lot of that is if you're in one of the areas where you have a lot of asylum seeker hotels, and sometimes you'll have people that join and then are literally moved on a week later. But because of differences in spelling, coming in from other countries and not necessarily getting all their NHS numbers sorted out absolutely correctly before they've moved on, you may still have them on your list and they may have gone elsewhere in the UK or even been sent back to whichever country they came from. So if you look at a child's records and they haven't been seen in 6 to 8 months and you maybe notice it's an asylum seeker hotel, I would make a few extra inquiries to see if they're still there, which you can do with a few phone calls. Or double checking, and then I would request that they are removed from your list by using the embarkation code as you go through to have them deducted. And that way your percentage, yes, will come down, but you will be able to hit those targets. And if those patients aren't with you, they are just going to cause more and more bits of the targets you can't hit. So that's one idea. Unfortunately, there's no other exception reporting allowed with children. There's also some very good bits for those of you that have ARDNs that you can see within their searches if you've got certain areas where people have perhaps seen a patient, ticked some of the template that they're supposed to do, and then the nurses haven't completed the template quite properly and missed a couple of bits. It does pull up what's been missed, and you can go back to those same nurses and ask them to recall what they did in that particular area of their meeting, or they can just go ahead and send and ring that patient and find out exactly what's happened and why they've missed certain bits and get that completed, because it's far better to have that completed than missing full points for certain patients. So that's probably the better way to deal with your QOF. We will, of course, have local enhanced services that need looking at this time of year, so it is getting busier and busier. Do remember to delegate at times. You cannot do everything. So you should have all your local submission plans that should have been sent out to you for your local enhanced services. You should have a meds management plan that should be in place and get your pharmacist assisting you with that. Or if you are not lucky enough to have a pharmacist, some of your GP partners may have to help you with that. And all your quality improvement plans need to be ready for submission. So as a little reminder, at the beginning of the year, we went through contracts, and you do have an elective quality improvement scheme in Manchester. Don't forget that does include that you need a copy of PCM minutes in your Q4 template. So do make sure you've got that. If you haven't, get that PCM meeting in place this month to make sure that you can just upload a copy of those minutes and then hit those criteria. You've got until the 10th of April for that deadline. And you're just checking on the wording that came out in that quality improvement scheme. It did say completion and submission of the referral management template, including full completion of Q4 requirements, review of referral advice and guidance data, internal audits, referral management, activity outcomes of actions undertaken across the PCM will all be submitted by the 10th of April. So just keep that in mind. Excuse me, I seem to have a bit of a frog in my throat. Thank you. Now we're coming up to the time that it will be flu return time. Do remember to check all your stock, get as much sent back as you can get your money back for. So that should be on your initial order form. It will tell you what percentage. Some of you may have 5%, some 10%. Some of these places you have to send a photo. Do set yourself a reminder to then destroy the stock once your credit note has come through. They can insist on coming out, so you can't take your photo and get rid of that stock. But if that stock isn't destroyed and CQC come out, you will get yourself in trouble. So set yourself a reminder as soon as that credit note's come through to get rid of any flu vax, because the season will be over. But do make sure that you also contact whatever flu company you're using, especially ones like Seqirus. They don't always send you back the credit of your money that you have got back. What they will often do is keep that as a credit all year. So you may need to pull that credit down. You can do that certainly with Seqirus by going onto that Flu 360 website. As soon as they've agreed to credit, get it pulled back down, and then it's going to sit there in your bank account and not in theirs. If you have any concerns that you've missed flu claims or perhaps even prescription claims over the last few years, you can go back 6 years to get back any prescription claims that you may have missed. It's not that easy to do it yourself unless you really know what you're doing. Some of you will know who Daniel Vincent is. He used to be a practice manager, and he's got a company that can help you do this. So if you hover over here, you will get sent to a link which will take you through for the PPA work that he can assist you with. Then you'll need to just tell Daniel whether it's flu or PPA claims that you want to go back to, and he will help you get that money back. He charges a percentage of findings. I don't work for this company, by the way. I've had very good experience of them, so he's asked me to share that experience with all of you if that is helpful for you. I will pop that link in the chat as well, because it doesn't seem to be working greatly on there, just if that's any help to you all. See. And also you're going to need to have to make some decisions about COVID this year, because there are some changes with the COVID vaccines. You don't need to any longer work your COVID vax through your PCN. Even if you do it individually at your practice at the moment, the PCN gets the money and then that has to be fed back to you. You can start applying to do that directly. You will need to obviously discuss that with your partners and your teams to see if you want to make any changes and then get those changes in submission. That really depends on how well things work work within your PCN or not. So if they don't work brilliantly through your PCN, it might be worth you having a little bit of a think and deciding what is the best way for that to happen for you. And if that is if you want to make those changes, then please go ahead and make sure that you get that paperwork in time. Just going to add that link into the chat that we mentioned before about enhanced technology, just in case that's any help for you. I know there's not too many dispensary practices within the Manchester area, but I do need to just mention, if you are in a dispensing practice, you should have had your dispensary quality scheme in by the 31st of January. I know they sometimes will take late submissions, but also you need to get signed up for next year. If you're not signed up, then by the time it comes through to next year, they won't let you to play any part of that. So make sure you get that done. And do have a double check that you did your EDEC. When you that should have been in by the end of December. Again, I know they let you put it in late. If you haven't done it, they would rather have it in than not at all. So do have a double check. And as we're coming to the end of year end, the end of the year for things like your payroll and your pensions, do please remember that you have to, if you haven't done this before, you have to do your final HMRC reading. So as you're going through your payroll, if you do your own payroll, there will be a little button. Now it differs on each payroll system, but there will be a button that says last submission of the year. And you need to tick that so they are aware it is your last submission of the year. Your staff will be due their P60s. Just from years and years of doing my own payroll and having the difficulties that come perhaps with staff that always lose things, I would always recommend that you take a sort of copy electronically of all of the P60s, keep it in a folder somewhere, because in a month or two, someone will have lost theirs or will deny that they've been sent it, and it's easier to jump in there and grab it out of one folder than perhaps have to go back onto payroll and go backwards trying to resubmit it, particularly if you don't, you thinking about changing payroll providers or anything like that. It's really, really good to just have all those saved. Same with your SD55s. It's quite amazing how little errors can happen, and you can be looking for SD55 some years and years later. And if you change payroll providers, that's really difficult to get hold of. So ensure you keep a copy of all SD55s as a bulk, but do make sure that you do that weird thing that we have to do in general practice. I don't know anywhere else that other than NHS pensions, where we've taken the money all year, but you have to go on and physically upload exactly everyone's SD55. For those of you that are new practice managers and haven't done this before, when you upload someone's SD55, it works out from all the money that you have taken all year and have paid towards NHS pensions from your payroll. That is sort of almost held, the easiest way to explain it is in a big account, not individually for each member of staff. And when you upload those SD55s at year end, it actually allocates it to those members of staff. So if you don't do this correctly, what you will find is your staff members in August, when they're allowed to go on their own pensions and see the updates coming through, it will look as if you have not paid any of their pension if you haven't updated their SD55. And I have gone into practices to assist, and that has happened. It's been quite a common thing, and people have been trying to get their pension and found that for years and years, maybe theirs has got a slight glitch in it, something that hasn't quite worked out. They've gone from full-time to part-time, and sometimes it throws a glitch. If that has happened and somebody has chosen to not upload that SD55, they cannot get their pension. So you want to get this right for people. So please do make sure you get those in. You've got until May to do that. Or again, delegate that to somebody else that's senior if you're lucky enough to have an assistant manager that may help you with that. If you go onto your NHS pensions, there is a section where there are issues and problems that have come up in your NHS pensions for prior years, and you can go on there and actually have a look and see if this has happened. I've had to actually go on in a practice I've been assisting in and put in 3 or 4 years worth of SD55s for one person where there's obviously been a glitch, and also ending people's pensions, people who have left who are still getting an SD55 each year. So do make sure that your SD55s come out, and they are only for your people who are actually part of your surgery still. If you've got random ones for someone that's left, you'll need to go on to NHS pensions and finish their pension back from when they actually left you. Hope that sort of explained a little bit. I have done a checklist for you as well, so that you can start doing that lovely piece of work that we all have to do at this time of year, which is looking out for new tax codes and also making sure that all staff meet the new minimum wage. So some of you will be in Agenda for Change practices. You won't have to deal with this because everyone will be sorted for that. But if not, the new wage that's coming out from April, so from your end of April pay, will be £12.71 as a minimum for your minimum wage. 18 to 20-year-olds, £10.85. Under 18s or apprentices, £8 per hour. So you need to make sure that you are at least hitting that. And you will have all seen the new contract payment sort of letter that came out, and the follow-on webinar from Amanda Doyle that came out on Monday, I believe she did that. So within that does explain that they are potentially going to give you an uplift that's looking at a 2.5% rise for staff. So again, if you're not in an Agenda for Change practice, then this might be a time for you to just start looking at those minimum wage payments. That's extra 2.5% for staff, and seeing how that would look in reality to get that piece of work done ahead. Obviously, we haven't been given the exact global sum new figures, but once that comes through, you'll need to work that out and make sure you can afford things within your practice. If it's any assistance to you all, I was doing a piece of work for a particular practice, which was just to take all that letter from Amanda Doyle and break it all up into a spreadsheet so that you could rag rate red, amber, green as you hit each of those particular pieces of work that we have to hit for next year. That's things like your weight management, which will be gone now as a LES, but is entering into QOF. It's letting your staff know about those sort of things. There's new areas of QOF to hit. There are various new bits that need to happen, and your capacity and access payments are obviously gone from the PCN, but that money will be reinvested into utilising for GPs under ours, and there are some changes that are coming in there. So obviously with all of those changes, I've done this rag rated spreadsheet and I have shared that with GP Excellence, and that will come out to all of you. If it's no use to you, delete it. Really doesn't matter to me, but it may help you and save you a few minutes. And before we get onto HR rules, one thing for you to all be aware of, if you sit and work out all of your bank holidays, to add them in for your staff holidays, if you do it in the sort of correct fashion, adding them to the holidays and then removing the time so that this works out for people who perhaps don't work a Monday and all that sort of thing. They've thrown a bit of a spanner in the works this year because Easter falls twice between April 26 and March 27, which actually causes 2 extra bank holidays that get thrown in there. So we've got late Easter and April Easter coming up in 2026, and then an early March Easter in 2027. So that may completely throw things when you're working stuff out. Better to know ahead to make sure that you've got all of that in place. So think about that as well. So we're now going to talk about the HR rules that are changing, and this is for you to have some stuff in place. The HR rule changes are going through where there will be some things that are coming have already come into to fruition. Some things that will be starting next year, and some things are then being added to. So it may be the same rule coming in next year, but it is being increased in what the staff need to have out of that rule in 2027. So I've tried to do you a bit of a breakdown so that you can see all the different things that are changing and make sure that you have got everything in place, not just for this upcoming year, but also with plans for the future years to have stuff ready. So at the moment, this is something that's already in place. This came in last year, I think, and you need to be sort of aware of it if you're not. So that is that employers should be paying annual leave payments for regular overtime, as well as for 0 hours contracts. So employers in the UK are required to include overtime pay within when you're working out your staff's annual leave pay. This is particularly if you've got part-time staff, and they are doing so much overtime, it brings them up to almost full-time. So you need to consider that if you haven't already put that in place, and you can do that with a payment rather than natural annual leave of 12.7%. So you can add that on as an extra payment. I know that we set up a spreadsheet in my final practice to work through overtime and pay it each month to just make sure that they got the correct money. But if you are not doing that, you do need to have a look at that and make sure it's in place before you get jumped on by one of your staff. The new HR rules that are coming in 26-27 is as follows. So we'll start with unfair dismissal protection. Will go to 6 months, whereas it used to be 2 years, or it's been 2 years up until now. So that's if somebody then complains if they are dismissed, or with constructive dismissal as well. So if they leave you and then they claim constructive dismissal, they have protection after 6 months from next year, rather than the 2 years as it is at the moment. The cap on compensation is also being removed, so that will mean that potentially there was quite a not too bad a cap as far as the employer was concerned. Now that will be removed, and really the sky's the oyster. So you need to be very, very careful if you are dismissing, or if somebody has a claim for constructive dismissal. Something your ICB should have potentially gone through with you has been the sexual harassment changes that are coming in, where we have got to show as employers that we have a legal duty to take proactive steps to prevent workplace harassment. So for 26-27, that is workplace harassment, and then it is going to third-party harassment from 2027, which I'll bring in when we go to the future laws that are planned. You should be updating all your policies around that, and there are new updates to policies on places like Practice Index that you can have a look at to make sure you are legal. Flexible working, employees will have further rights around requesting flexible working from day one. So you can interview someone for a job Monday to Wednesday on reception, and they can come in on their first day and put in a flexible working request saying, actually, I want to work Thursdays and Fridays instead. You have to consider every flexible working request, and there are going to become tighter rules on employer refusals. That's all they've told us. They haven't given us the detail around that, but there are going to be tighter rules, they tell us. There will be more family rights coming in. Parental, paternity and carers leave entitlements will be expanded, alongside stronger protection for pregnancy, maternity returners and bereavement. So new rules are coming in. We have to wait for the government to assess and give us the finer details on those. There are going to be new trade union reforms, rules on collective bargaining and strike action going to be modernised. And we've all heard that the GP contract is really something that the RCGP have not accepted. So I don't know whether these trade union rules are going to work with the salaried and partner GPs that may go on strike. So we'll have to see. There is going to be a Fair Works agency enforcement body to oversee compliance with employment rights and fair work standards. Stronger rights for workers around 0 hours contracts, to insist on rights for more predictable hours and protection from abuse for casual contracts. And thresholds and consultation rules are going to be updated around collective redundancies. That's more your ICBs, but that can happen. I've had to unfortunately make a team redundant, which is really hard if you have to do that within general practice. So it is possible that it will affect all of you. As we get into October 2026, there are going to be fire and rehire changes, making it automatically unfair to dismiss an employee for not agreeing to a variation of contract, or to dismiss them to employ a new person on better for the employer terms. So they're coming in. Your employment tribunal limits are going to increase for 3 months to 6 months. So what that means is if somebody wants to put in for constructive dismissal or something similar, they used to have to act within 3 months of leaving the job. Now they have up to 6 months to put that in. So that's that little bit longer for you to have to wait and see what's going to happen. The reasonable steps that we need to take for sexual harassment is going to be extended from October. So basically that means you can be in breach a lot easier if you haven't taken full attempts to protect your employees. That will include things like if you haven't got a Christmas party policy or an events policy. There are some examples on places like Practice Index or First Practice Management. I would be having a look at that, because we can be liable if at the Christmas party somebody feels sexually harassed, particularly if you provided the alcohol for that event. So you need to make sure that you've got wording within your policies to protect your employers, your partners, in these cases where perhaps things are slightly more out of your control than they are in the office. So we have to also start by October and going into 2027, there will be an obligation on employers to take reasonable steps to prevent sexual harassment by third parties. So a third party, and this is all harassment, not just sexual harassment, so any form of harassment. This could be your patients who are coming in who may harass your staff. We have had, certainly in places I've worked, there's been patients who have perhaps got a little carried away, gift buying for receptionists, etc. If they feel threatened by that, it is your duty now to, from October, to stop any third-party harassment. It is also people like someone that comes in to pick up your blood samples, or a cleaning company coming in, any third-party contact that takes place within your workplace, it is now up to the employers to stop any of that harassment, whereas previously that wasn't actually under our role. So this is something, again, you're going to need to look at your policies and procedures and get them updated to make sure they are absolutely correct. From 2027, now this is sitting with the House of Lords, so this is not definitely going to go through. This is some of the changes that Angela Rayner brought forward as part of her HR bill, but it is still being discussed. So it is something to be aware of, but it is not set in stone. It's going to happen. So that is day one protection from unfair dismissal. So this one, They are unsure whether they're going to agree it yet, but it looks like this could be from the very first day someone comes in, but they have not worked out yet how they are going to put a probation period in, because if there is no provision for a probation period, that could mean that that wonderful person, because we've all done it, interviewed someone that was absolutely great, and you've no idea who this grumpy person is that arrives for the job, because that wasn't the person that was really excited about coming. If that happens, they have rights from day one, apparently from 2027, if this bill goes through. But they are looking at how to bring in a probation period alongside that. Not sure how that's going to work, but it is just for you to be aware of that these are things being looked at. 0 hours contracts, there is going to be a sort of a deal where we are going to have to start offering those people, if they've worked on a 0 hours contract for us for quite some time, we are going to have to offer them permanent hours. Doesn't mean they have to accept it, but we are going to have to consider and offer those. This will also be agency workers. So agency workers, I would consider that to be locums, such as locum GPs. If you have locum nurses in, we may be put in a position where we have to offer them permanent roles. The finer detail hasn't come through. Again, that is sat with the House of Lords. Also sat with the House of Lords are extra rights coming in for pregnant workers and new mothers. Further protection rights from them being dismissed for up to 6 months after they have returned to work. So finer detail to come out on that. More HR rules for 2027 that are being looked at, even more rights going in for collective redundancy. So that is changing this year and then strengthening in 2027. The flexible working rights, again, stronger rules planned for 2027 if it gets passed by the House of Lords, which will be, there will be 8 statutory grounds that you'll be given to refuse a flexible working request. And if it doesn't hit those 8 specific things, you have got to give reason that can become quite legal on why you are not allowing your staff to have those flexible working that they want. And there are going to be even more rules coming in on preventing sexual harassment for your staff, very specific regulations on particular reasonable steps that you'll be expected to take. But again, the finer detail hasn't come out. You are going to have to, if this rule goes through, which it's looking like it will, there will be rules around menopause. Not many practices this is going to hit straight away because it's for employers with at least 250 employees, but some of those big neighbourhood hubs that they're talking about that we should have that are under the 10-year plan. If that happens, then it will hit those, and we have to have special rights around menopause and supporting our employees who are going through the menopause. And they are suggesting that you may want to voluntarily start some of that work from April. We are also going to be given rules around bereavement leave to be extended to certain relationships beyond parent and child. We will be given what particular relationships those need to be, and therefore you will have to give bereavement leave, not necessarily paid. That hasn't been clear. It may be able to be unpaid. There is also going to be an expected leave to be given to anyone who has pregnancy loss prior to 24 weeks, as well as after 24 weeks, as is currently coming in, which can mean miscarriage, of course, early stage miscarriage. You may be expected to give leave. It is really unclear at the moment, and I know this is why the House of Lords are looking at this, because your employee also does not have to prove that in the way that the law is written at the moment. So somebody could come in and tell you they've experienced that without that proof from their doctors. So that is being looked at to make sure, obviously, we've got to be careful of abuse of leave as well. So that is why that's all held up and will potentially come through in 2027. So lots of new changes coming through, lots of things that you are going to have to be aware of, and have plans in place to have all of those things set up for yourselves going forward. That's all the HR stuff. We have got some more bits for you to do by year end. I'm just going to take another sip of drink. Any questions, please pop them in the chat. Obviously, anything that's going through the House of Lords, I really can't answer how well whether I think those things are going to happen or not. I've no idea. All we know that they are being voted on. So to go further, and just some reminders of what we need to be doing right now, rather than looking to the future with this HR stuff that's coming out. A few things that you need to know. So around 2 years ago, the law changed for annual leave, and you have got to send 2 reminders to staff to tell them if they have outstanding annual leave. You are not allowed to just take it off them because they haven't used it by year end. So I'm sure most of us send reminders, but you need to send and keep copies of those reminders in case this is challenged. We are going into, as we've seen from the HR, a world where you are being much more challenged by your teams if they are not getting what they feel they're entitled to. And apparently we have to play mum now or dad, and let our staff know exactly what leave they've got left, exactly when they use it or lose it by, and send that reminder twice and prove you've sent it twice. So if you haven't done that, get that sorted. Have a run for all your reimbursements. Always a good time of year to have a think about that and make sure that you have claimed all your water, your CQC and your business rates, and rent if you have rent over the last, now is a good time to look at the last year, but actually you can go back 3 years at this point and work through each of those and make sure you've claimed all those back. So you get that in ahead of the accountants meeting so that you can make sure all of those things are in place. Make sure that you've have a quick run through and make sure your estates work has been done, your maintenance, your calibration, your PAT testing is all completed. We have a sort of generalised spreadsheet that will give you some ideas, and do remember that's your branch surgeries as well. So you've got absolutely everything in place. You haven't forgotten anything this year. CQC are really hot on this stuff, so it's important that you do that. And it's also a really good idea to have a look, if you can ever get on the CQC updated website, to make sure that everything is correct on there. It is really difficult when somebody has retired, particularly a partner who was your CQC registered manager. If they have left and you haven't got them replaced on there and the wrong name is on there, it's amazing how often I'm seeing that in practices. So it is definitely worth that quick look over at CQC if you've had any retired partners in the last couple of years or any big changes. Just for awareness, with CQC, you can have more than one registered manager. So if your registered manager is someone who is likely to retire or leave, it is worth getting a second one on there so that you don't have a period where nobody is getting any information out of CQC and you suddenly find there's an inspector on your doorstep because the email has gone to the wrong registered manager. So you can have that second person. Have a look at PCSE. Always good to get this done a little bit ahead of year end to keep your accounts going straight. So if you have given your salary GPs wage rises throughout the year, you should be updating their pension contributions to show that new wage rise and backdating that to whenever you gave that wage rise. So that should be done on PCSE every time you give an uplift to a salary GP. That should be on there. You can also update the partners if you're suddenly expecting to make a lot more money, but the accountants will help you and give you some details on that. But certainly for your salary GPs, that should constantly be updated on PCSE whenever you give that DDRB rise. and backdate it if it is backdated to April. Make sure that shows on there, which will mean their pensions will come out correctly and you won't have sudden large amounts coming out throughout the year. But if you haven't done it already and you maybe gave them a wage rise all the way back May, June last year, backdated to April, get that sorted out before it gets to the accountants. And then that's one more step towards having things done correctly. Your accountant should be giving you your pension certificate details if that needs to be done. You should get your accounts if you do your bookkeeping. So you're using something on the lines of QuickBooks or Xero, you need to reconcile the accounts at the end of the year. Very easy to reconcile because everything gets sucked in from your accounts, but you have to do that piece of work where you put in a statement for the 31st of March, put in the exact amount that's on that bank statement, and then you do it. It runs through a reconciliation for you. Obtain all your statements from the bank and put them to one side ready for your accountants, whether you send them directly to them or you have them ready, because you will find after 15 months, many banks, you have to then start applying for statements. So it takes a lot longer. Better to just get them downloaded and saved in a file. And start thinking about a date for your accounts meeting. I know it sounds like it's mad. Why are we doing our accounts meeting when we're only just finishing the year ahead? But if your partners are anything like partners I've had in the past, they all plan all their holidays and suddenly it gets really hard to get that accounts meeting in. So find a suitable date, speak to the accountants, and generally they will sort of put in a request or a block for a particular date for you. So definitely worth having a think about just having that semi-booked. There will be a big checklist that's going to come out for you. And in that checklist, you can work through it. And it will all be provided for you just to make sure you've done everything. It will go over the national minimum wage. It will go through everything that you need to have and those details. Make sure that when you're running through for April, you arrange an accounts handover if you need to, if everything isn't digital. Reconcile all your bank statements and get your CQRS QOF Achieve statement ready, because that's going to have to go off to your accountant. So you can pull that down and again save that with those bank statements. Also, of course, you're going to have all your new contracts to look at. And when these slides were made and sent in, we hadn't had that contract letter, but do go through that contract letter. And as I said, there'll be a spreadsheet connected with that will come out to you. But just make sure that you have got everything in place ahead so that you are not in breach of your new contract as it comes out, because there are lots and lots of little bits that are changing. They're only small bits, but we do need to make sure that we are ready for all of those things. And if you've got all that in place, you should be able to relax because you are done. So hopefully, as a reminder of what we've gone through today, we've gone through how to sort out your QOF. Remember those enhanced services, including getting that PCN minutes that you need where you've discussed your elective QI projects. Think about all those HR things that are coming in. Ensure you've told your staff to use up their annual leave if you haven't done that, and go through all of those little bits of checklist that I gave you and will be on your final checklist for you. To remind you of upcoming sessions, there is a few more left in March that will be coming through. But if you've missed any sessions, I did pop in the chat earlier the link to get through to the GP Excellence webinars, which will also have today's training on it if you need to return to it. And again, obviously, GP Excellence will be sending you out today's slides and lots of handouts that may be able to help you with that. So hopefully that's been a little bit of a sort of reminder of all the bits that you need to do, or for any of you that are new managers, it will just let you know absolutely everything that you have to get covered. It's not too bad covering it all. It's just sometimes you need a bit of a kick and a reminder of everything coming up, because it's the biggest planning time for you. So get all that HR stuff planned that you need to, get your new contracts planned, and make sure you click through all of your year end and you should be there. So any questions? Or you're all just in shock with all the HR stuff? I know it's quite scary. Questions? If there are no questions, I will let you all get on and enjoy the rest of what is a sunny afternoon here in Lancashire. I'm not sure what it's like where you are in Manchester, but hopefully have a lovely day and rest of your week. Thank you so much for joining today.